My wife's son stood up at Christmas dinner and called me Favelado trash in front of everyone. I smiled, walked out, and that night I canceled every single thing I'd been paying for 5 years. What they didn't know was that I grew up in Rocinha with nothing, and I wasn't afraid to go back to having nothing. But they were. My name is Lucas. I'm 42 years old and I'm a civil engineer. I earn well, very well. For the past 5 years, I've been the sole financial support for a family that never once considered me part of it. This is my story. I grew up in Rocinha, one of the largest favelas in Rio de Janeiro. My mother sold acai and tapioca on the street corner near our house. My father worked construction when he could find work, which wasn't always. We lived in a 2-room house with walls you could see through in places and a tin roof that sounded like thunder when it rained. I shared a mattress on the floor with my 2 younger brothers. We had electricity some days, not others. Water came from a communal tap we shared with 6 other families. But my mother had a rule that saved my life. Education first, always. No matter how hungry we were, no matter how much, we needed money. I had to go to school. I studied by candlelight when the power was out. I walked 2 hours each way to a public school in Botafogo because it was better than the one in Rocinha. I worked every moment I wasn't studying. At 12, I was delivering groceries on a bicycle. At 14, washing cars in Leblon. At 16, working nights at a gas station while going to school during the day. I got into the Federal University of Rio on a full scholarship, engineering. It was the first time anyone in my family had gone to university. My mother cried. My father, who rarely showed emotion, hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. For 4 years I studied during the day and worked nights. I graduated top of my class, got hired by a major construction firm, worked my way up. By the time I was 35, I was a senior engineer making more money than I'd ever imagined possible. I bought my mother a real house, one with solid walls and a roof that didn't leak. I sent my brothers to trade schools. I moved out of Rocinha to a small apartment in Tijuca. I'd made it. But I never forgot where I came from. Some people wear their past like a badge of honor. I just carried it quietly, knowing that every nice thing I had, I'd earned through blood and sweat. I met Helena at a construction industry conference 6 years ago. I was 40, recently divorced from a brief marriage that had produced no children, feeling lonely despite my success. Helena was there, representing her late husband's architecture firm. She was elegant, well-spoken, with that polished appearance that comes from a lifetime of comfort. We started talking during a coffee break. She asked intelligent questions about my presentation on sustainable urban building. We exchanged numbers. Helena was 40 years old, a widow with 2 children. Her husband, Eduardo, had died of cancer 3 years earlier. He'd left her with a small architecture firm that was struggling, 2 teenage children, and insurance money that was running out faster than expected. Gabriel was 19, studying business administration at a private university that cost $2,000 a month. Sophia was 17, in her last year at an elite private high school, with plans to study fashion design. Helena told me all of this on our 3rd date, over wine at a beachfront restaurant in Ipanema. She didn't ask for money directly. She just painted a picture of struggle, of a widow trying to maintain her children's standard of living, of difficult choices ahead. She made me feel needed, important, like I could be the hero who saved this family. I see now how calculated it all was, but at the time, I was a 40-year-old man who'd spent his life working, who had money but no family, who wanted to feel like he mattered to someone. Helena made me feel like I mattered. We dated for a year. During that time, I started helping with expenses, small things at first, dinner here, a bill there, then bigger things. Gabriel's tuition when Helena couldn't make the payment, Sophia's school trip when the insurance money fell short, a new computer for Gabriel when his old one died, designer clothes for Sophia's birthday. I didn't mind. I had the money. More than I knew what to do with, and I wanted to show Helena and her children that I was serious, that I could provide, that I could be trusted. The first time I met Gabriel and Sophia, they were polite in that distant way teenagers are with their parents' new partner. They shook my hand, answered my questions with 1 or 2 words, then disappeared into their rooms. Helena assured me they just needed time. Their father's death had been traumatic. They were protective of their mother. They'd warm up eventually. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. We got married in a small ceremony at a chapel in Santa Teresa. Just us. Helena's mother, Vera, her sister, and the children. Gabriel and Sophia attended but barely participated. They sat in the back, checking their phones, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, I saw Gabriel smirk at his sister. Helena saw it too, but said nothing. I told myself it was just teenage awkwardness. They'd adjust. After the wedding, we moved into a house I bought in Tijuca. 4 bedrooms, a small garden, a decent neighborhood. The house cost me $200,000, paid in cash from my savings. I put it entirely in my name. Helena suggested multiple times that we should make it joint property, for legal protection, she said. But something in my gut, some instinct I couldn't explain, made me refuse. Thank God for that instinct. From day 1 of living together, I paid for everything. The property taxes, the utilities, the food, The internet, the cable TV, Gabriel's university tuition, $2,000 every month, Sophia's private school, $1,500 monthly, their cell phones, top-of-the-line iPhones that they replaced every year, their laptops, their clothes, always brand names, their nights out with friends. Money I'd transfer without question whenever they asked. Helena stopped working 6 months after we married. The architecture firm was struggling anyway, she said. She wanted to focus on being a wife and mother, on making our house a home. What she actually did was go to the gym, have lunch with friends, watch TV shows, and shop online using the credit card I'd given her with a $5,000 limit. Gabriel and Sophia never called me by my name. I was he or mom's husband, or they'd just ignore me entirely, directing their requests through Helena like I was invisible. Mom, Gabriel needs money for the weekend. Sophia wants a new dress for a party. The kids need you to drive them to the mall. I tried to connect with them. I took Gabriel to football matches. I paid for Sophia's dance classes. I showed up at their school events, sitting in the audience while they pretended not to see me. Gabriel graduated from high school the year after I married Helena. I gave him a laptop for graduation, top of the line, $1,500. He opened it, said thanks without looking at me, and that was it. No graduation party invitation for me. I wasn't in any of the photos. Helena said they just had a small thing with school friends. When Gabriel started university, I was paying $2,000 monthly for tuition, plus his books, plus a monthly allowance of $500 for expenses. He never once thanked me. Not once in 3 years. Sophia was worse. She'd perfected the art of asking for things while making it clear she despised me. She needed money, but she'd never ask me directly. Always through Helena. And the amounts kept growing. A dress for a party became 5 dresses. A new phone became a new phone every 6 months. Money for movies with friends became money for weekend trips to Buzios with those same friends. The worst part was Eduardo. Not Eduardo the dead husband, but Eduardo the ghost, who lived in every corner of that house. There were photos of him everywhere. Family portraits in the living room. Pictures of him with the kids, in their bedrooms, his belongings still in closets. I understood keeping memories. What I didn't understand was the shrine. Helena refused to remove any of it. The children need to remember their father, she'd say, whenever I suggested maybe we could make the house feel like ours, not his. Gabriel especially worshipped his dead father's memory. He'd bring up Eduardo constantly. My father used to take us sailing. My father knew everyone important in Rio. My father's firm was respected everywhere. Always comparisons. Always making it clear that I, the guy who grew up in a favela, could never measure up to Eduardo, who'd inherited his father's architecture firm and social connections. One night, about 2 years into the marriage, Gabriel came home drunk with friends. I heard them in the living room, loud, laughing. I went downstairs to tell them to quiet down. It was past midnight. Gabriel looked at me with contempt and said to his friends, "This is the guy my mom married, from Rocinha. Can you believe it?" His friends laughed. One of them said, "But he must have money, right? Otherwise, why would she?" More laughter. Gabriel saw me standing there but didn't apologize, didn't look embarrassed. He just turned back to his friends and kept talking like I wasn't there. When I told Helena about it the next morning, she said Gabriel had been drinking. He didn't mean it. I was being too sensitive. That was always her response. Too sensitive. Overreacting. Not understanding how hard. This was for her children. 3 years into the marriage, Gabriel brought a girlfriend home. Isabella, a girl from Leblon, daughter of a banker. She was polite to me at first. Then one afternoon I came home early and overheard Gabriel talking to her in the garden. She'd asked about me, about what I did. Gabriel said, "He's an engineer. Makes decent money. Not like really rich, but enough. He's from Rocinha originally." Isabella's voice changed. "Oh, a favelado?" Gabriel laughed. "Yeah, but he's cleaned up pretty well. Doesn't talk about it much. I think he's embarrassed." They kept talking, but I'd heard enough. That's how they saw me. A favelado who'd cleaned up well, but was still, fundamentally, less than them. I never confronted Gabriel about that conversation. What was the point? It would just confirm that I'd been listening, that their words had hurt me. Better to stay silent. Keep paying the bills. Keep being the invisible provider. Sophia turned 18 a year ago. For her birthday, she wanted a party. Not a small gathering, a real party. She gave Helena a budget of $6,000, a venue, a DJ, a photographer, decorations, catering for 80 people. When Helena presented me with the invoice, I suggested something more modest, maybe a dinner with close friends and family. Sophia had a meltdown, screamed that I was ruining her life, that I'd never understand what it meant to have a real celebration because I grew up poor. Helena begged me to give her this one thing. Just this once. I gave in. The party was spectacular. I paid for everything. Venue in Leblon, professional DJ, photographer following Sophia around all night, food that looked like it came from a magazine. Eduardo's parents were there, treating me politely, but with that condescension that said they knew I didn't belong. Helena's family was there. Her mother Vera, who'd never accepted me. Her sister who pitied Helena for marrying beneath her station. And Gabriel brought Isabella, who smiled at me with that fake warmth rich people use with service workers. I spent the whole night standing by the bar, watching. I'd paid for every detail of this party, but I was a ghost. When they cut the cake, I wasn't in the photos. When Sophia gave a thank you speech, she thanked her mother for everything, her late father for watching over her from heaven, her grandmother, her friends. She never mentioned me, not once. The man who just spent $6,000 on her party didn't warrant a single word. Helena noticed my face. Later that night, she said Sophia was just nervous. She'd probably forgotten. I shouldn't take it personally. But it wasn't just the party. It was 5 years of this. 5 years of being invisible, except when they needed money. 5 years of hearing them reminisce about Eduardo while I sat there knowing I'd never measure up. 5 years of being treated like hired help in my own house. The house I'd bought, that I paid for every single day. The breaking point came 4 months ago. Gabriel finished university. I'd paid every cent of his education. $72,000 over 3 years, not counting books, not counting the laptop, not counting his monthly allowance. When he graduated, I wasn't invited to the ceremony. Helena went. Vera went. Eduardo's parents went. I found out about it afterwards when I saw the photos on Helena's phone. Gabriel in his cap and gown, surrounded by family. I asked Helena why I wasn't invited. She said there were limited tickets. She'd assumed I wouldn't want to go anyway since I'd be working. I'd taken the day off specifically for his graduation. I'd marked it on my calendar. She knew. She just hadn't cared enough to include me. That's when something inside me started to break. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just a slow realization that I'd been playing a role in a script where I was never meant to be the hero. I was the ATM, the convenient solution to Helena's financial problems. The man who paid for everything while her real family, the family that mattered, went on pretending I didn't exist. I started documenting everything, quietly, without telling anyone. I made spreadsheets of every payment I'd made over 5 years. The house deposit, the monthly bills, Gabriel's education, Sophia's school and activities, the clothes, the phones, the parties, the vacations, the cars, everything. The total came to $347,000. Almost $350,000 over 5 years. Not a loan. Not an investment. Just money I'd given freely to a family that never once said thank you. 2 months ago, Gabriel announced he'd gotten a job, marketing position at a startup, decent salary. I congratulated him, asked if he'd be moving out, starting his independent life. He looked at me like I was crazy. Why would I move out? This is my home. I've always lived here. Helena agreed. It's his home, Lucas. He doesn't need to leave just because he has a job now. So Gabriel kept living in my house, rent-free, while working and saving his entire salary for himself. The job didn't change anything. He still treated me like I didn't exist, still called his mother if he needed something, ignoring me even when I was standing right there. 6 weeks ago, Helena announced we'd be hosting Christmas dinner. Her mother, her sister and family, Eduardo's parents, Gabriel's girlfriend, Sophia's new boyfriend. 15 people total, and one more person, Eduardo's brother, Marcelo. I'd never met Marcelo, but Helena said he was coming to Rio for the holidays, and the kids really wanted to see their uncle. I agreed. Why wouldn't I? I agreed to everything. I always did. I spent $2,500 on that Christmas dinner. Turkey, ham, sides, expensive wines, elaborate desserts, decorations that made the house look like something from a magazine, gifts for everyone. For Gabriel, a new laptop even though his old one worked fine, because I'd heard him mention he wanted an upgrade. $1,200. For Sophia, a tablet for her design work. $800. Plus cash for both of them. $300 each in envelopes. For Helena, jewelry she'd been admiring. $2,000. Christmas evening arrived. I'd been cooking and coordinating all day. Helena helped some, but mostly she was getting ready, making sure she looked perfect for her family. Vera arrived first, kissing Helena, hugging the children, greeting me with a stiff hello. Eduardo's parents came next, polite, but cold as always. They'd never forgiven Helena for remarrying, and certainly not for marrying someone from Rocinha. Marcelo arrived with gifts, cheap things from airport shops, but Gabriel and Sophia acted like he'd brought gold. This is Uncle Marcelo, my father's brother. They introduced him to everyone in the room except me. When he came to shake my hand, Gabriel didn't introduce us. Marcelo had to ask, "And you are?" "I'm Lucas, Helena's husband." I said it clearly, firmly. Marcelo nodded. "Oh right, the new husband," then turned to talk to Vera. The dinner was tense from the start. I'd prepared everything, but Helena served, making sure everyone had what they needed. I sat at the head of the table, in my own house, but somehow felt like a guest. Conversation flowed around me. Marcelo told stories about Eduardo, about when they were kids, about family vacations, about Eduardo's success in architecture. Helena laughed at stories I'd heard versions of before. Vera added her own memories. Gabriel and Sophia hung on every word, asking questions, laughing, reminiscing about times with their father. I might as well have been a waiter. Every so often someone would remember to include me in conversation. "So, Lucas, you're in construction?" Vera asked with that tone that made construction sound like ditch digging. "Civil engineering," I corrected. "I design buildings." "Oh," she said, turning back to Marcelo without further interest. After dinner we moved to the living room for gifts. Gabriel opened his laptop with barely a glance. "Thanks," he mumbled in my direction, already turning to show it to Isabella. Sophia opened her tablet. Cool, she said, not to me but to the room in general. Then she opened the envelope with cash. Oh, money. She tucked it in her pocket without acknowledgement. They opened. Marcelo's airport gifts with far more enthusiasm. A keychain for Gabriel, a scarf for Sophia. Both thanked him profusely, hugged him, told him how thoughtful he was. I'd just given them $2,000 in gifts and got nothing. Not a thank you. Not a hug. Not even eye contact. Vera decided this was the moment to make a speech. Standing with her wineglass, she said, I'm so grateful we could all be together tonight. Family is everything. Eduardo would be so proud seeing his children grown, successful, surrounded by people who really love them. She emphasized really, looking at Helena and the kids, pointedly not looking at me. It's so important to remember where we come from, to honor our roots, to stay connected to our real family. Real family. The words hung in the air. Gabriel stood up, raising his glass. I want to make a toast, he announced. Everyone went quiet. To Uncle Marcelo, for coming all this way. To Grandma Vera, for always being there. To Mom, for everything she does. He paused, looking around the room. His eyes passed over me without stopping. And I want to say something important. He took a breath, and I saw something in his face, a decision being made. Sophia and I have been talking, and we've decided something. We only recognize our real family, our blood family, Mom, Dad's family. That's who we listen to, who we respect. He looked directly at me for the first time all night. Other people in this house are just circumstances, temporary, not part of our real family. The silence was absolute. Sophia stood up next to her brother, emboldened. Exactly, she said with a smile that was pure malice. We didn't ask for this situation. We didn't choose to have someone from Rocinha living in our space. That's not who we are. That's not our level. Favelado trash doesn't become family just because Mom married it. Favelado trash. The words echoed in my head. I looked at Helena. Her face was pale, but she said nothing. Not one word in my defense. Vera was nodding slightly, as if she approved. Eduardo's parents looked uncomfortable, but stayed silent. Marcelo seemed pleased. Isabella and Sophia's boyfriend looked awkward but said nothing. The only sound was the Christmas music still playing in the background, mockingly cheerful. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 10 seconds. Then I stood up, folded my napkin, placed it on the table with careful precision. I looked at Gabriel, then at Sophia, then at each person in that room. Understood, I said. My voice was calm, too calm. I walked to the coat closet, got my jacket and keys. Helena found her voice finally. Where are you going? Out, I said. To handle circumstantial matters. I walked out of my own house, closing the door gently behind me, got in my car, drove until I found a cafe that was open on Christmas night, ordered coffee, took out my phone, and for the next 2 hours, I methodically destroyed everything I'd built for them. First, the credit cards. I'd given Helena, Gabriel, and Sophia each a supplementary card linked to my account, $5,000 limit each. I called the bank and canceled all 3. The automated system tried to confirm, yes, cancel them all immediately. Then I transferred every cent from our joint accounts into my personal account. $48,000 moved in minutes. These were accounts I'd set up for household expenses, accounts where I deposited my entire salary each month. Now, they were empty except for the minimum balance required to keep them open. I canceled the credit card I'd given Helena for house expenses, canceled the streaming services, Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime that everyone used, canceled Helena's gym membership, $200 monthly, called Gabriel's university and told them to remove my payment authorization for next semester, called Sophia's design school where she was supposed to start next year and withdrew the enrollment deposit, called the car insurance company and canceled the policy on Gabriel's car. The car was in my name. Without insurance, he couldn't legally drive it. I sent an email to my lawyer Rodrigo asking to meet as soon as possible after the holidays. I needed to discuss divorce and asset protection. Finally, I sent Helena a text message. Things have changed. We'll talk tomorrow. I sent it and turned off my phone. That night, I slept in a hotel for the first time in 5 years. The bed was unfamiliar, but I slept better than I had in months. No one asking me for money, no one ignoring me, no one making me feel invisible in my own home. I woke up feeling strange, light, free. The next morning, December 26th, I returned to the house at 10. Helena was in the living room, still in her pajamas, eyes swollen from crying. Gabriel and Sophia were nowhere to be seen. Marcelo was gone. Where were you? Helena asked. Her voice was broken, but there was accusation in it. A hotel, I said calmly, thinking clearly for the first time in years. Lucas, the kids didn't mean what they said last night. She started her usual minimization strategy. They were emotional. Marcelo's presence brought up a lot of feelings about Eduardo. They said things they didn't mean. You know how young people can be impulsive. I sat down across from her, maintaining physical distance. Helena, Gabriel is 22. Sophia, who is 18. They're not children who say things without thinking. They said exactly what they've been thinking for 5 years, what they've always thought, and you said nothing. You sat there while they called me Favelado trash in front of your entire family on Christmas. In my house. She started, crying. I'm sorry, Lucas. I should have said something. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. Marcelo has always made the kids feel they have to choose sides between Eduardo's memory and you. It's complicated. I don't care about complicated, I said with a firmness that surprised her. I care that after 5 years of supporting this family, of paying for every single expense, every luxury, every whim, I was publicly declared circumstantial, temporary, trash, and you let it happen, without one word of defense. What do you want me to do? Helena wiped her tears. Do you want me to talk to them? I'll talk to them. I'll explain that they were wrong. No, I said. I don't want anything from any of you anymore. Last night I made some decisions. I canceled all the supplementary credit cards. I transferred all money from our joint accounts to my personal account. I canceled subscriptions. Your gym, Gabriel's car insurance. I notified his university and Sophia's design school that I won't be paying anymore. Helena stared at me, disbelief growing on her face. What? You can't do that. Gabriel is in the middle of his final year. Sophia is supposed to start design school in March. They can ask their real family for help, I said. The blood family they respect so much. Or they can ask Uncle Marcelo, or Eduardo's parents, or Vera. Surely their real family will step up. Lucas, you know they don't have money. Helena stood up, her voice rising. Eduardo's parents are retired. Vera lives on a pension. Marcelo barely makes rent. They can't pay for university and design school. Not my problem, I responded with icy calm. I'm just circumstantial, remember? Temporary. Favelado trash. Those people don't have permanent obligations to families they're not really part of. At that moment, Gabriel came down the stairs. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, phone in hand, looking confused. Mom, my card isn't working. I tried to order breakfast and it was declined. I canceled it, I said, looking directly at him. Gabriel stared at me like I'd spoken another language. What? Why would you do that? Because I decided that only real family should support their children. You said last night that you only recognize blood family. Perfect. So only blood family should pay for you. Gabriel's face went from confusion to anger. That's ridiculous. What I said last night was just to make it clear that we respect our father's memory, and I'm making it clear that I respect your decision that Eduardo is your father. Excellent. Let him pay for your university, your car, your phone, your food, your housing. But he's dead, Gabriel shouted. Then ask his brother Marcelo, or his parents, or your grandmother Vera. This house is also our home, Gabriel said. We live here. This house is in my name, I replied with a calm that clearly unsettled him. Only my name. Your mother isn't a co-owner, so technically you all live here because I allow it. That can change. Helena intervened quickly. Lucas, enough. You're taking this too far. Gabriel, go back to your room. Let me handle this. No, I said firmly. Gabriel stays. Call Sophia down too. I want everyone to hear this at once. Gabriel didn't move, clearly torn between obeying his mother and hearing what I had to say. Helena went upstairs, herself, to get Sophia. Minutes later, both children were sitting on the couch, looking at me with a mixture of resentment and growing concern. Yesterday, I began. You two publicly declared that you only recognize your blood family, that I'm circumstantial in your lives. Fine. I accept that. Classification. As a circumstantial person, I've decided to remove all financial support I've been providing for 5 years. Sophia interrupted with her shrill voice. You can't do that. Mom is your wife. You have responsibilities. My responsibilities are to my wife, I replied. Not to adult children who despise me. Helena is an adult who can work. She worked before we married. She can work again. This is revenge, Gabriel accused. You're punishing us for something we said when we were upset. It's not revenge, I explained patiently. It's simply accepting the terms you established. You want only your blood family to have authority over you? Perfect. Then only your blood family should support you financially. It's logical, isn't it? The silence that followed was telling. Helena finally spoke, her voice trembling. Lucas, please, we can fix this. The kids will apologize, right? She looked at Gabriel and Sophia. Neither spoke. They're waiting for me to give in, I observed. Like I always have. They expect that after this drama, everything will go back to normal, that I'll keep paying for everything while they continue treating me like a stranger in my own house. Isn't that right? Helena protested weakly, but I cut her off. Tell me, when was the last time Gabriel or Sophia included me in anything? When did they last invite me to something? Ask me about my day? Say thank you for anything? The silence was my answer. Exactly, I continued. I've been nothing more than a provider, an ATM, with legs. And honestly, I'm tired of that role. Sophia started crying, not real tears. The manipulative tears she'd perfected as a child. You're cruel. I never thought you'd be this cruel. Mom, see? This is why I could never accept him. I always knew he was a bad person. Interesting, I responded, without emotion. When I was paying for your $6,000 birthday party, your designer clothes, your trips with friends, I wasn't cruel. I'm only cruel now that I've stopped giving you money. Helena tried to hug me, but I stepped away. Lucas, love, please. I understand you're hurt. You have every right to be angry, but this will affect the children's futures. Gabriel can't finish his degree. Sophia can't graduate with her class. They can ask Eduardo's family for help, I suggested again. Or they can work. Apply for scholarships. Do what millions of young people do when they don't have rich parents to pay for everything. Eduardo's family doesn't have money, Gabriel shouted, finally showing real panic. How do you expect them to support us? That's your problem, not mine, I replied, shrugging. You chose to recognize only them. Now accept the consequences of that choice. Helena changed tactics. She dropped to her knees in front of me, completely theatrical. Please, Lucas. This is a marriage. We're a blended family. You knew I had children when you married me. You accepted that responsibility. I accepted being a husband. I corrected her. I tried to be a positive father figure. But they constantly rejected me, and last night they made it perfectly clear they don't want or need me in their lives, except as a source of money. So I'm giving them exactly what they asked for. No authority over them, and no financial responsibility toward them. I stood to leave. Helena grabbed my arm. Where are you going now? To work, I answered. Some of us have real jobs and real responsibilities. Today is December 26th, she exclaimed. Nobody works today. I have a project to supervise, I lied. Besides, I'd rather be anywhere than here. I left the house ignoring Helena's shouts and the children's protests. I drove aimlessly for a while, finally stopping at a quiet park. That's when the full reality hit me. I'd spent 5 years trying to earn the love of a family that never wanted me. I'd spent $350,000 on people who saw me as a resource, not a human being. I'd allowed myself to be treated with contempt because I was afraid of being alone again. But the truth was, I'd been alone all along. I'd always been alone in that family. My phone rang constantly. Helena called repeatedly. Text messages from Gabriel. We need to talk. Like adults. Messages from Sophia. Please don't do this. I'm so sorry. They all sounded desperate, but none sounded sincere. What they really meant was, please keep giving us money. I ignored everything. Instead, I called Rodrigo, my lawyer. Ricardo? Rodrigo answered with surprise. Everything okay? It's a holiday. I need to see you as soon as possible, I said. Tomorrow if you can. I want to start divorce proceedings and I need to protect all my assets. There was a pause. Are you sure? You seemed happy last time we talked. I was blind, I replied. Now I see clearly. Can you help me? Of course. Come to my office tomorrow at 9. Prepare a list of all your assets and any relevant documentation. And Lucas, I'm sorry. I know this must be difficult. What was difficult was living in that situation for 5 years, I said. This is liberation. That night, I went back to the hotel, ordered room service, watched a movie, enjoyed the silence. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody ignored me. Nobody made me feel invisible. It was just me, my thoughts, and a peace that had been absent too long. The next morning I woke to 63 messages from Helena. Most were desperate pleas mixed with accusations of cruelty. The last message was different. Marcelo left last night. I talked to him about helping with the kids' expenses. He said he can't, that he barely supports himself. Eduardo's parents said the same. The kids are devastated. Please, Lucas, let's just talk. I smiled bitterly. There it was. The truth. Everyone had avoided admitting. Eduardo was the wonderful biological father, except in everything that actually mattered. I was the circumstantial one who paid the bills. I didn't respond. Instead, I prepared for my meeting with Rodrigo. It was time to end this properly and protect what was mine. Rodrigo's office was in Centro, in a modern glass and steel building. I arrived at 9 sharp with a folder full of documents. House deed, bank statements, receipts of payments I'd made over 5 years, even screenshots of conversations where Helena and the children constantly asked me for money. Rodrigo, a 50-year-old man with graying temples and shrewd eyes, reviewed everything meticulously for nearly 2 hours. Occasionally he'd whistle low or shake his head in disbelief. Lucas, he finally said, removing his glasses and rubbing his eyes. In my 25 years of practice, I've seen many cases of financial abuse, but this is extraordinary. You've spent over $350,000 on this family in 5 years. Hearing the number spoken aloud hit me like a fist. $350,000, almost $500,000. Money I could have invested, saved, used to travel the world, or simply kept for retirement. Instead, I'd spent it on stepchildren who despised me and a wife who'd allowed that contempt. Can I recover any of it? I asked, though I knew the answer. Rodrigo shook his head. Not legally. Everything was given voluntarily. No coercion, no technical fraud. But there's good news. The house is entirely in your name. There are no significant marital assets because Helena didn't work during most of the marriage. The cars are in your name. Investment accounts are in your name. She has very little legal claim to your assets. What about alimony? I asked, dreading the answer. That could be a problem, Rodrigo admitted. You've been married 5 years. She left work during the marriage, supposedly to focus on the home. A judge could order temporary alimony, maybe 2 or 3 years. But considering you have no children together and she's capable of working, it won't be much. I calculate between $1,500 and $2,000 monthly, maximum. It was less than I'd feared. And the stepchildren, do I have any legal obligation to them? Absolutely none, Rodrigo answered, firmly. You didn't adopt them. They're not minors dependent on you. Gabriel is 22 and Sophia is 18. Legally, you owe them nothing. Zero. I felt enormous weight lift from my shoulders. Then let's proceed with divorce as quickly as possible. Rodrigo nodded. I'll prepare the papers today. Helena will be notified within 48 hours. But Lucas, I warn you, this will get ugly. When people realize the money's gone, they bring out the worst in themselves. Let them try, I said with determination that surprised even me. I have nothing left to lose except the money I have remaining, and I'm going to protect that no matter what. I left Rodrigo's office feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. I knew the consequences were just beginning, and I was right. That afternoon, while I was at my real office reviewing construction plans, I received a call from an unknown number. I hesitated but answered. Lucas, it was Vera's voice, ice cold. We need to talk about what you're doing to my daughter and grandchildren. I have nothing to discuss with you, Vera, I responded politely but firmly. This is between Helena and me. You're a despicable man, she spat. Helena gave you the best years of her life, opened her home and family to you, and this is how you repay her, leaving her with nothing. Helena gave me nothing except bills to pay, I replied, feeling anger rise. And I'm not leaving her with nothing. She has arms and legs. She can work like any responsible adult. She has 2 children to support, Vera shouted. 2 children who have a biological father, I countered. Eduardo. Or had, since he's dead. Why don't you call Marcelo to complain? Or Eduardo's parents? Oh, right, because they've never contributed anything. But when I stop paying, I'm the villain. Vera hung up furiously. 10 minutes later, I received messages from Helena's sisters, both accusing me of abandoning a blended family in need, of being cruel to the stepchildren, of breaking Helena's heart. I blocked all their numbers. The next day, I returned to the house to collect more of my belongings. Helena was there, sitting in the living room with red, swollen eyes. She'd put on a dress she knew I liked. She'd done her makeup carefully. She was trying to seduce me back into the situation. Lucas, she said with a soft, vulnerable voice, please sit down. Let's talk like civilized adults. I sat, but maintained distance. Let's talk. I know things got out of control at Christmas, she began with her best victim performance. The kids were excited to see Marcelo and said hurtful things, but they didn't mean it. They're willing to formally apologize to you. I don't want their apologies, I said. Simply. They mean nothing to me anymore. Helena blinked, clearly not expecting that response. How can you say that? They're children, Lucas. They make mistakes. They're young adults, I corrected. And their mistakes have been consistent for 5 years. Christmas wasn't a slip. It was the culmination of years of treating me as less than human. That's not true, she protested weakly. Tell me then, Helena, when was the last time you defended me when your children disrespected me? When did you tell them to thank me for anything? When did you establish boundaries about how they should treat me? She had no answer. Exactly, I continued. You allowed me to become the silent enemy who paid bills, and now that I've stopped paying, suddenly I'm important to this family. Helena changed tactics. Tears began rolling down her cheeks. I love you, Lucas. I know I've made mistakes, but I love you. Please. Don't destroy our marriage over a moment of anger. It's not a moment of anger, I explained calmly. It's 5 years of clarity compressed into one night. And no, Helena, you don't love me. You love my money. You love the security I provide. You love not having to work. But me as a person, you've never really loved. That's cruel and false, she sobbed. Is it false? I asked. Then tell me something about me that doesn't relate to my work or money. Tell me my dreams, my fears, my hopes. Tell me my favorite color or favorite food or what makes me happy. Helena looked at me with her mouth open. She couldn't answer because she didn't know. After 5 years of marriage, she knew nothing substantial about me. My favorite color is dark blue, I informed her. My favorite food is my grandmother's roast. She died 10 years ago. What makes me happy is the silence of the mountains where I used to camp before I met you. Things you never asked because you never really cared. Helena was crying genuinely now, finally understanding the depth of our disconnection. We can start over, she said desperately. We can really get to know each other. I can change. The kids can change. I don't want anyone to change, I replied, standing up. I want you to leave me alone. Rodrigo will officially notify you about the divorce within hours. I suggest you get a lawyer. Divorce, she whispered as if the word was poison. You're really going to divorce me over this? I'm not divorcing you over this, I clarified. I'm divorcing you because I finally understood this marriage was never real. It was a business transaction where I was the only one paying without receiving anything in return. I went upstairs to collect more clothes and personal items. When I came down with 2 suitcases, Gabriel and Sophia were blocking the front door. They'd arrived while Helena and I were talking. You can't just leave like this, Gabriel said, trying to sound authoritative, but his voice trembled. This is our home, our family. This is my home, I corrected him. And you made it very clear at Christmas that I'm not part of your family. Sophia approached with tears in her eyes. Tears I'd learned not to believe. I'm sorry, Lucas. Really. I'm sorry. I was cruel and stupid. Please forgive me. I didn't mean those things. Sophia, I said, looking directly into her eyes, you've had 5 years to treat me with basic respect. 5 years to occasionally say thank you. 5 years to include me in your life in some meaningful way. You didn't. Not because you couldn't, but because you chose not to. Your apologies now that the money's gone mean nothing. It's not about the money, she shouted. We want you here. You want me here, I repeated with disbelief. Gabriel? When is my birthday? He looked at me confused. April? October, I answered. 3 months ago. Neither of you remembered. Not even a text message. Sophia, do you know what I'm currently working on? The project that's consumed my work life the past 6 months. She shook her head slowly. It's the construction of the new children's hospital, I informed them. The project I've talked about at the table hundreds of times while you looked at your phones ignoring me. But I bet you know exactly when your credit card payments are due, right? Both remained silent, finally confronted with the truth of their contempt. Step aside, I ordered with a firm voice. What if we don't? Gabriel asked with one last flash of defiance. What will you do? I pulled out my phone. I'll call the police and have you removed from my property for trespassing. This house is mine. Your residence here only because I allow it, and that can change any time. The threat was enough. Gabriel stepped aside, Sophia too, crying dramatically. I walked between them carrying my suitcases. Helena appeared in the hallway. When will you be back? She asked with pathetic hope in her voice. I'm not coming back, I answered. You can stay in the house for now, but eventually I'll sell it, or you'll have to leave. My lawyer will explain the details. You're throwing us out? Helena asked with horror. I'm giving you time to find alternatives, I explained. More than I deserve, after how you've treated me. But yes, eventually you'll have to go. This is my house and I want to sell it. Where are we supposed to go? Sophia sobbed. We don't have money. Get jobs, I suggested, shrugging. Like millions of people do. Helena can go back to work. You two can work part-time while studying, or you can ask Eduardo's family for help. The blood family you adore so much. You're a monster, Gabriel shouted. We always knew you didn't care about us. You're right, I admitted, surprising him. I don't care about you anymore. And you know what? It feels liberating to finally admit it. I spent 5 years trying to earn a place in your hearts, ignoring all the signs it would never happen. Now I finally accept reality. You don't want me. I don't want you. We're even. I walked to my car with the suitcases. Behind me, I heard the screams and sobs of the family I was abandoning. Part of me felt guilty, but a bigger, stronger part felt finally free. That night in my hotel room, I received a message from an unknown number. It was Marcelo. I heard what's happening. Just want you to say I always thought you were an idiot paying for my brother's kids, but now I see you finally grew a pair. Respect, though now I have Helena calling me daily asking for money I don't have. Thanks for that. I blocked his number too. I didn't need validation from a man who'd abandoned his own nephew and niece. 2 days later, Helena was officially notified about the divorce. Rodrigo called to inform me she'd hired a lawyer and they were asking for $4,000 monthly alimony, half the house value, and that I cover the stepchildren's support until they finished their studies. It's ridiculous, Rodrigo explained. No judge will grant that, but they're going to fight. I warned you. Let them fight, I responded. I'll fight too. And I have something they don't. Documentation of everything. And so the legal battle began. But I was prepared. For the first time in 5 years, I was fighting for myself. The following weeks were an emotional roller coaster. Helena and her lawyer, a man named Gustavo Reyes, who had a reputation for being aggressive in divorce cases, tried to paint me as an abusive husband, cruelly abandoning a vulnerable blended family. The first hearing was brutal. Gustavo presented a picture of Helena as a devoted mother who'd sacrificed her career to care for the home, only to be cruelly abandoned when her children made a simple teenage mistake. He spoke of Gabriel and Sophia as if they were helpless small children, not young adults who'd publicly humiliated me. My client, Gustavo declared with rehearsed drama, trusted Mr. Lucas. She left her job because he insisted she dedicate herself to the home. Now, after 5 years, he abandons her without resources, leaving her with 2 children to support. Rodrigo stood calmly. Your Honor, allow me to present evidence that completely contradicts that narrative. He began showing the documents we'd meticulously prepared. Bank statements showing enormous monthly transfers, receipts for university payments, school fees, designer clothes, extravagant parties, screenshots of conversations where Helena, Gabriel, and Sophia constantly asked me for money without a single thank you. But the piece of resistance was the video. It turned out the living room had a security camera that automatically recorded during large gatherings. It had captured the entire Christmas dinner. The judge, a woman in her 50s named Magistrate Carmen Silva, watched the video in silence. Everyone in the room could hear Gabriel perfectly declaring, "We only recognize our blood family," and calling me circumstantial. We saw Helena's face, her complicit silence. We heard Sophia applaud her brother's declaration. When the video ended, Magistrate Silva removed her glasses and looked directly at Helena. "Ma'am, you allowed your children to publicly humiliate your husband this way?" Helena stammered. They were excited to see their uncle. They weren't thinking clearly. They're 22 and 18 respectively, Magistrate Silva responded coldly. They're not small children, and you as their mother had a responsibility to intervene. You didn't. Gustavo tried to recover. Your Honor, a moment of poor judgment by teenagers doesn't justify Mr. Lucas completely abandoning his responsibilities toward a family he'd been supporting. His responsibilities, Rodrigo interrupted, were toward his wife, not toward adult stepchildren who publicly rejected any authority or bond with him. My client didn't adopt these young people. He has no legal obligation toward them. And after this video, I think it's clear why he chose to remove himself from that toxic situation. Magistrate Silva nodded slowly. Mr. Gustavo, your petition for 4,000 monthly alimony is excessive considering the circumstances. Mrs. Helena is young, healthy, and capable of working. Additionally, the marriage only lasted 5 years. I'll grant temporary alimony of $1,200 monthly for 18 months. That will give her sufficient time to rejoin the workforce. As for the stepchildren, Mr. Lucas has no legal obligation toward them. Case closed on that aspect. Helena sobbed loudly. Gustavo looked frustrated. I felt a wave of relief, but the drama was far from over. That night, I received 37 calls from Helena. I didn't answer any. The text messages were increasingly desperate. Please, Lucas, we need to talk. We can't survive on 1,200. The kids hate me. They say it's my fault. Marcelo won't help with anything. I have nowhere to go. Please, just listen to me once. I blocked her number. Next day, I received a call from my boss, engineer Marcelo Ferreira. Lucas, I need to see you in my office now. I went with my stomach churning, fearing the worst. When I arrived, Marcelo was sitting behind his desk with a serious expression. I received a call this morning, he said without preamble, from a woman named Helena who claims to be your wife. She told me a rather disturbing story about how you abandoned her and her children without resources, that you're cruelly divorcing her after promising to always care for her. I felt anger rising. Helena called you at my work. Yes. Marcelo confirmed, and it wasn't pleasant. She cried on the phone, asked me to talk to you, to convince you to reconsider. It was uncomfortable. Marcelo, I'm truly sorry she involved you in this, I said, genuinely mortified. It's a complicated personal situation, but I can assure you I didn't cruelly abandon anyone. I ended a toxic marriage where I was being financially used. Marcelo raised a hand. Lucas, I've known you 8 years. You're one of my best engineers and a person of integrity. I don't need explanations, but I need this not to happen again. There can't be personal drama interfering with the workplace. Understood? Completely, I responded. I'll speak with my lawyer. This won't happen again. I left Marcelo's office, humiliated and furious. Helena had crossed an unacceptable line. I immediately called Rodrigo. We need a restraining order, I told him. Helena is contacting my employer, harassing me with constant calls. This is getting out of control. Document everything, Rodrigo ordered. Every call, every message, every contact with third parties. We'll build a solid case. That night, the harassment escalated to a new level. I was having dinner alone at a quiet restaurant when Gabriel appeared. He sat across from me without invitation, looking gaunt and desperate. We need to talk, he said without greeting. We have nothing to talk about, I replied, continuing with my meal. My university dropped me, he blurted abruptly. They couldn't charge tuition for the semester. I lost all my classes. Now I have to wait until next year to re-enroll, and that's if I get the money. That's your problem, not mine, I said without looking at him. You're a selfish bastard, he exploded, hitting the table. All this because you got offended by something we said when we were drunk. You weren't drunk, I corrected with icy calm. You were perfectly sober and said exactly what you thought. Now live with the consequences. Mom had to get a job as a cashier, Gabriel continued with trembling voice. She earns minimum wage. Camilla had to transfer to a public school because we can't afford private. We're living on the money you give us by legal obligation, and it's not enough for anything. What you give Helena plus what she earns working should be enough to live modestly, I observed. Millions of families do it with less. We're not those families, Gabriel shouted. We're accustomed to a certain standard of living. A standard I financed, I noted, and that you took for granted while treating me like garbage. Now you know the true cost of that lifestyle. Gabriel changed tactics. Tears began rolling down his cheeks. Please, Lucas. I know I was an idiot, I admit it. But you can't punish the whole family for my mistake. Sophia didn't do anything. Mom loves you. Please, just come back. Or at least keep paying for my university. I'll pay you back when I graduate and get a job. I promise. Your promises are worthless to me, I replied, standing up. And yes, Sophia did something. She applauded when you humiliated me. As for your mother, if she really loved me, she would have defended me that night. She didn't. Now leave me alone or I'll call security. Gabriel sat there crying openly in the middle of the restaurant. I left without looking back. 2 days later, it was Sophia who appeared. She was more calculating than her brother. She waited outside my office, dressed in deliberately juvenile clothes, hair in pigtails, no makeup. She was trying to look like a vulnerable child instead of the manipulative teenager she was. Lucas, she said in a small voice when I left the building. Can we talk? Just 5 minutes. No, I answered, walking toward my car. She followed me. Please, just hear me out. I'm not going to ask for money or anything. I just want you to understand something. I stopped and turned toward her. You have 2 minutes. Sophia took a deep breath. Christmas night, when Gabriel said those things, and I applauded, I did it because I was scared. Dad was there. Uncle Marcelo, I mean, and he's always made us feel guilty for having another father figure in our lives. I felt like I had to choose a side. I chose wrong. I'm so sorry. It was a convincing performance. I almost believed it. Almost. Sophia, I said with exhaustion, you're 17, almost 18. You're old enough to know that actions have consequences. For 5 years, you had countless opportunities to treat me with basic respect. You chose not to. Not because you were afraid of Marcelo. He appeared once every 6 months. You chose to despise me because it was convenient. I paid the bills anyway, no matter how you treated me. But I was just a child, she protested. At 12, you were a child, I conceded. At 15, you were a teenager. At 17, you're almost an adult. At some point you had to take responsibility for your behavior. That point came at Christmas, and you failed spectacularly. Sophia began crying. I can't go to the university I wanted. I had to transfer to a horrible public school where I don't know anyone. All my friends stopped talking to me because I can't go out with them anymore or buy the clothes they wear. My life is ruined. Your life isn't ruined, I corrected. It's simply no longer funded by someone you despised. You'll learn to live within your means. You'll learn the value of money. You'll learn that people aren't ATMs. These are valuable lessons, Sophia. You should thank me someday. I hate you, she finally shouted, showing her true face. I always hated you. You were never my father. You were just the idiot who paid for everything. There it is, I said with a sad smile. The truth, finally. Thank you for your honesty, Sophia. Now at least I know with certainty I made the right decision. I got in my car and drove away while she screamed obscenities behind me. When I reached my new apartment, a small but comfortable place I'd rented far from the family house, I poured myself a whiskey and sat in silence. My phone rang. It was Rodrigo. Lucas, I have news. Helena is pushing to accelerate the divorce. Apparently the financial pressure is too much and she wants to resolve it quickly to get the alimony as soon as possible. Are you okay with that? Completely, I responded. The faster this ends, the better. There's something else, Rodrigo continued cautiously. Marcelo contacted my office, Eduardo's brother. He wants to meet with you. For what? I don't know, but he insisted it was important. Do you want me to reject it? I considered the options. Part of me was curious about what the absent, biological family member could want. No. Arrange a meeting at your office with witnesses. I want to know what he has to say. 3 days later, I was sitting across from Marcelo in Rodrigo's office. The man looked worse than I remembered. Thinner, with deep circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes. Life clearly wasn't going well for him. Lucas, Marcelo began with a hoarse voice. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see. You're right, I confirmed. What do you want, Marcelo? He ran a hand through his greasy hair. Helena has been calling me constantly, crying, begging me to help with the kids. But I don't have money. I can barely pay my own rent, and honestly, I don't want that responsibility. I stared at him, incredulous. You came here to tell me you don't want to support your own brother's children? They're not children, Marcelo said defensively. They're nearly adults, and I never asked for this life. Helena got pregnant and Eduardo married her because it was the right thing, but he never wanted to be a father. That's why he left everything to insurance and his business. The brutal honesty of his selfishness was almost impressive. So what do you want from me? I want you to go back to her, Marcelo blurted. To work things out. Because if you don't, she's going to keep calling me. She's going to expect me to step in and I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I stood up, anger finally breaking my composure. You're a piece of trash. You know that? You abandoned your brother's children when they were small. You almost never contributed financially. And now you come here asking me to fix the problem you created so you don't have to take responsibility. You're pathetic. Marcelo shrank at my fury. I'm just being honest with you. Get out, I ordered. Leave this office before I do something I'll regret. Marcelo left without another word. Rodrigo, who'd witnessed everything, whistled low. That man is a first-class coward. He always was, I responded, sitting down again. And that's the father Gabriel and Sophia chose to worship over me. That tells me everything I need to know about their judgment. 6 weeks after the Christmas dinner that changed everything, the divorce was finalized. Magistrate Silva granted the $1,200 monthly alimony for 18 months, as promised. The house would be sold, and profits divided 60-40 in my favor, recognizing I'd paid the entire down payment and most of the mortgage. Helena had 3 months to move out. I left the courthouse feeling enormous weight lift from my shoulders. I was free. Officially, legally free. Helena tried to approach me on the courthouse steps. Lucas, please, just give me 1 minute. We have nothing to talk about, I responded without stopping. The kids are suffering, she shouted desperately. Gabriel had to leave university. Sophia's depressed. Don't you care at all? I stopped and turned toward her. Helena, for 5 years I cared. I cared so much I spent $350,000 trying to make your family happy. And in return I received contempt, humiliation, and emotional abuse. So no, I don't care anymore. They made their choice. Now they live with it. They were just kids, she sobbed. Keep telling yourself that if it makes you feel better, I replied. But the truth is they were old enough to know exactly what they were doing. And you, as their mother, allowed every moment of mistreatment toward me. You're as guilty as they are. I left her crying on the steps and walked toward my future. The following months were about rebuilding. I sold the house for an excellent price. My portion was $230,000 that I immediately invested wisely. I received a promotion at work, becoming principal engineer with a significant salary increase. I started going out with friends again, something I'd stopped doing during my marriage because Helena always needed something. One night, 3 months after the divorce, I was having dinner at an upscale restaurant with a group of colleagues when I saw Helena. She was working as a waitress, in black uniform and white apron. She looked exhausted, thinner, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. We made brief eye contact. She paled and quickly turned, disappearing into the kitchen. One of my colleagues, Sandra, noticed the exchange. Do you know her? That was my wife, I replied simply. Sandra nodded with understanding. She'd heard versions of my story. It must be hard for her to work like that after years without doing it. Probably, I agreed. But it's what millions of people do every day. Work to live. There's no shame in that. Our waitress that night wasn't Helena. She sent someone else. Better that way. A month later, I received a message from Gabriel. It was the first in 4 months. I got a full-time job. It's not much, but it's something. I'm going to resume my studies next year, paying for them myself. I thought you should know. I don't expect anything from you. Just wanted you to know I'm trying to grow. I didn't respond immediately. I thought about it. Finally, I wrote back, I'm glad to know you're taking responsibility for your life. I wish you the best. It wasn't reconciliation. I didn't forgive years of mistreatment, but it was acknowledgement that he was trying to change. That was all I could offer. Sophia never contacted me. According to what I heard through third parties, she'd gotten a job at a clothing store and was saving for university. Apparently, she blamed everyone for her situation except herself. Typical. Marcelo disappeared completely. According to rumors, he moved to another city with his new girlfriend, fleeing any responsibility toward his nephew and niece. Gabriel and Sophia finally saw their biological family member for what he was, a selfish coward who was never up to the task. 6 months after the divorce, I met Andrea. She was an architect, independent, no children, with her own established life. We met at a professional conference. The attraction was immediate, but we built the relationship slowly, with honesty from the start. I told her my entire story with Helena and the stepchildren. I waited for her to run away. Instead, she took my hand and said, "Thank you for sharing that. Now I know you're someone who values mutual respect. That's important to me too." Andrea didn't need to be rescued. She had no children who needed to be supported. There were no absent biological parents causing chaos. It was just her, brilliant and independent, choosing me because she valued me as a person, not as a provider. 1 year after the divorce, I was having dinner with Andrea at our favorite restaurant when Helena appeared again. This time, not as a waitress, but as a customer. She was with a man I didn't recognize, someone her age dressed modestly. She looked better than the last time I'd seen her, less gaunt, some peace in her face. Our eyes met. She hesitated, then approached our table cautiously. "Lucas," she said quietly, "can I talk to you a moment? Just a moment." Andrea looked at me, leaving the decision in my hands. I nodded. "Sure." Helena took a deep breath. "I just wanted to tell you that you were right about everything. I allowed my children to treat you terribly. I prioritized their superficial happiness over your dignity. I used you as a provider without valuing you as a person, and I deserved every consequence I received." I stayed, silent, surprised by the sincerity. "That man," she continued, pointing toward her companion, "that's Martin. He works in construction as a supervisor. He earns a modest salary. He can't give me the lifestyle you gave me, but he respects me, and I respect him. We're building something based on equality, not financial convenience." "I'm glad to hear that," I said honestly. "Gabriel is back in university," Helena added. "He took 2 jobs and got scholarships. He's proud to pay for it himself. He says he never valued education when you paid for it, but now that it costs him his own sweat, every class means something." "That's good," I commented. "Real growth requires real effort." "Sophia," Helena hesitated. "Sophia is still resentful, but she's working, paying for her own things, slowly learning the world owes her nothing. She'll learn eventually," I said. "Or she won't. That's her path." Helena nodded. "I just wanted you to know I'm deeply sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to say it. Have a beautiful life, Lucas. You deserve it." She walked away before I could respond, returned to her table with Martin, who greeted her with a warm smile. Andrea took my hand across the table. "Are you okay?" "I'm perfectly fine," I answered honestly. "For the first time in a long time, I'm exactly where I should be." 3 years after that fateful Christmas dinner, my life was unrecognizable compared to what it had been. Andrea and I got married in an intimate ceremony surrounded by people who genuinely loved us both. The proposal was simple, honest, without drama. Just two people who loved each other deciding to build a future together. I didn't invite Helena or the Stepchildren. That chapter of my life was closed. We bought a house together, smaller than the one I'd shared with Helena, but infinitely warmer. Every piece of furniture, every decision, every moment was shared between two people who mutually respected each other. We split expenses equitably according to our incomes. She never expected me to pay for everything simply because I was the man. I never expected her to sacrifice her career to care for me. We had a son, Daniel, who arrived when I was 46. Being a father at that age, with the maturity and experience I had, was completely different from trying to be a father figure to stepchildren who rejected me. With Daniel, every moment was appreciated. Every sacrifice was rewarded with genuine love. Every emotional and financial investment had real return. My career flourished without the constant weight of supporting an ungrateful family. I became a partner in the engineering firm, doubling my income. But more important than money was the peace of mind. No more constant demands for cash. No more guilt for setting boundaries. No more walking on eggshells in my own home. Occasionally, I received news about Helena and the stepchildren through mutual acquaintances. Gabriel graduated from university 4 years later than planned, working full-time while studying part-time. According to what I heard, the effort gave him real perspective. He got a decent job in marketing and was building his independent life. Sophia took a harder path. She spent years in low-category jobs, resentful with everyone, blaming the world for her situation. Eventually, she had a crisis when a boss told her exactly what she needed to hear. The world doesn't owe you anything. Stop acting like a victim and become the protagonist of your own life. She went back to school at 23, this time at a public university with scholarships she earned through real effort. Helena married Martin 2 years after our divorce. The wedding was small, modest. According to photos I accidentally saw on social media, she looked genuinely happy. Not the superficial happiness of having expensive things, but the deep happiness of being valued for who you are. I received a message from Helena on Daniel's 4th birthday. It was a photo of her, Martin, and her 2 now adult children, all together at a modest barbecue. The message said, "I saw on social media you had a son. Congratulations, Lucas. I hope you experience with him the real family we never gave you. You deserve it." I responded simply, "Thank you, Helena. I'm glad you found your path too." There was no bitterness, no resentment. Just two people who'd shared a difficult chapter, both now in better places. One day when Daniel was 5, we were at the park watching him play. I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to find Gabriel, now 27, looking mature in an office suit. "Lucas," he said with an uncertain voice, "I hope it's okay that I approached you. I saw you from across the park and wanted to talk." "Just a moment." "Go ahead," I said cautiously. Gabriel looked toward Daniel. "Playing. He's beautiful. Your son. He looks like you." "Thank you. I wanted to tell you something I've needed to say for years," he continued. "I was an idiot. No, worse than that. I was cruel, ungrateful, and fundamentally unfair to you. You accepted a complete blended family. You gave us everything. You asked only for basic respect in return, and I treated you like you were invisible, except when I needed something from you." "Gabriel." "No, please let me finish," he interrupted. "For years, I blamed everyone except myself, but the truth is, I made every decision that led me to humiliate you that Christmas night. I chose to worship an absent father while despising the man who paid for every aspect of my life, and I deserved every consequence I received." I stayed silent, letting him continue. "Having to leave university was devastating," he admitted. "Working horrible jobs while my friends continued their easy lives was humiliating, but it was necessary. Because for the first time in my life I had to earn things, and when I finally returned to university paying every cent myself, every class meant something. Every grade earned was truly mine." "I'm glad to hear you grew," I said. "Honestly. I don't expect forgiveness, Lucas," he said. "I don't expect us to have a relationship. I just needed you to know I finally understood. I finally learned the lesson you tried to teach us for 5 years. That respect is earned, not demanded. That money doesn't buy the right to be cruel. And that the consequences of our actions are real and lasting." I looked at him. He'd matured. The lines around his eyes spoke of nights working double shifts. The humility in his voice was genuine, not manipulative. "I accept your apology," I finally said. "It doesn't mean I forgot, but I recognize your growth." Gabriel nodded, eyes shining with tears he didn't shed. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you." He walked away without asking for anything more. No money, no relationship, no request that everything go back to how it was. Just recognition and apology. That, finally, was real respect. That night, with Daniel asleep in his room and Andrea reading beside me on the couch, I reflected on the journey. I'd lost $350,000, 5 years of my life, and a family that was never really mine. But I'd gained something invaluable: my dignity, my self-respect, and Clarity about exactly what kind of love I deserved. Gabriel's words that Christmas night, we only recognize our blood family, had been the catalyst for the best decision of my life. Cutting everything off wasn't revenge, it was liberation. Some blended families work beautifully, mine didn't. And that was okay. Because by walking away from what didn't work, I made space for what would work. And in Andrea's arms, with Daniel sleeping safely in his room, finally free from the weight of being only a provider, finally valued as a complete human being, I knew with absolute certainty I'd made the right decision. Looking back now, I can see that Christmas dinner wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of everything that truly mattered. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with people you thought loved you? Have you experienced what it feels like when your generosity is confused with obligation? Share your experience in the comments. If this story made you reflect, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to Favela Streetlight Stories. Your support means everything. Thank you for staying until the end.